A while back, staff here at Schuyler Mansion uncovered the love story of two people from 18th century Albany, a man named Will and a woman named Brit. Today, we decided to take a walk to visit a few locations that feature in that story.
This is a map of Albany as it appeared in the 1790s. Circled in red to the left is Schuyler Mansion, where Will was enslaved by the Schuyler family. Circled in red to the right is where his partner Brit lived on what was then Market Street. Like her husband, Brit was enslaved, in her case by the Ten Broecks, who were close friends and relatives of the Schuylers. And here, about halfway between them, was the original location of the Dutch Reformed Church in Albany. This is where Will and Brit baptized two of their children.
Thanks to an early Albany artist named James Ates, we have a pretty good idea of what Brit saw as she walked with her infant children to the church. Today, we'll start our stroll by following her likely path from the Ten Broecks house to the site of the original Dutch church. So here we are on Broadway, which would have been Market Street at the time, and this is the street where the original Ten Broecks house stood. That house burned down in 1797 in one of Albany's major fires. So some folks might be familiar with the Ten Broecks Mansion, but that was actually slightly later, rebuilt on what was considered to be outside of town after the fire. At the time, though, when Brit and Will had their children, this is the street where Brit lived. So things look pretty different today, of course. But with that Ates painting in mind, I feel like I can almost see what she would have seen walking down this street here to the intersection, which is where the church would have stood.
We're now where the original Dutch Reformed Church once stood. This is the site where Brit and Will had their children, Susanna and Harry, baptized in the 1770s. As you can see, it's no longer here, but the shape of the intersection captures its impact on the layout of this part of town. It also still exists, just in a new form, in a new location. We're going to go to its present-day location on North Pearl Street, which was simply called Pearl Street in the 18th century. The Dutch Reformed Church, now called the First Church in Albany, was built in the 1790s. It houses the original pulpit and retains the original records of marriages and baptisms. It is only because of these records that we know Will and Brit had and baptized their children. It was these records that helped us learn about Will and Brit and their family.
So while we don't know as many details about their lives, there are many more details documented and uncovered about Will and Brit's children and grandchildren. So if you'd like to know more about the family, check out our blog post linked in the description box.
And thanks for joining us on our stroll today. There's always so much to discover in this historic city.